At this precise second, as your eyes scan the screen and you absorb this message, an invisible but profound transformation is actively occurring within you. We aren't talking about some distant, abstract milestone you might reach years from now when you finally figure everything out. This evolution is unfolding right here, in this exact, breathing moment. The specific individual who initiated the playback of this video is fundamentally not the same entity who will witness its final seconds. And before you dismiss this as standard self-help hype, understand this. We are dealing with the literal laws of quantum mechanics. What is truly mesmerizing about this scientific reality is that your former identity does not slowly dissolve or gracefully age out of existence. It shatters and rebuilds in a fraction of a millisecond. The absolute second you choose to perceive yourself from a fresh vantage point, an entirely new dimension of reality cements itself into your physical experience. Tragically, the vast majority of the population navigates their entire lifespan trapped within a singular, unchanging snapshot. They exist in a perpetually collapsed quantum state, mindlessly duplicating the exact same persona every single morning, completely oblivious to the fact that they always held the pen to their own script. They rise from bed embodying yesterday's character, recycling yesterday's outdated thought loops, suffering through yesterday's lingering anxieties, and they mistakenly label this repetitive psychological prison as their true personality. However, there is a massive secret they are missing. You were never engineered to remain a static, unyielding entity. Human consciousness is meticulously designed to operate as a vessel of limitless potential. Every single conceivable variation of the person you aspire to become already exists simultaneously in the ether, eagerly awaiting the beam of your conscious focus to pull it down into tangible, physical form. This concept reaches far beyond the realm of abstract philosophy. It is the foundational bedrock of how our universe operates, repeatedly verified in the most advanced physics laboratories across the globe. When researchers examine a subatomic quantum particle, the mere act of looking forces it to immediately snap into one definitive location out of a sea of endless spatial possibilities. Prior to that crucial act of observation, the particle effectively exists everywhere at once, a phenomenon physicists refer to as quantum superposition. Your mind, your awareness, and your life trajectory function under the exact same microscopic rules. You are a walking universe of multitudes. The deeply tranquil version of you, the fiercely unstoppable you, the brilliantly innovative you, and the financially liberated you, they are all vibrating concurrently within the quantum field of pure potentiality. The only mystery left to solve is, which specific avatar are you actively illuminating with the spotlight of your attention? Consider the profound architecture of your daily routine. Every single dawn, in those fleeting microseconds just before your eyelids flutter open, there exists a sacred, untouched void. It is an exquisite window of raw, unshaped potential that occurs just before the floodgates of memory swing violently open. It is the silent pause before you recall your birth name, your mounting problems, your perceived flaws, and your deeply ingrained victim narratives. Within that brief, silent void, you are absolutely, undeniably liberated. Yet, how does the average person utilize this blank canvas? They instantaneously catapult themselves right back into the suffocating grip of the familiar. They blindly grope for their smartphone, forcefully drag yesterday's traumas into the present moment, and within mere heartbeats, they have deliberately tuned themselves back into the exact same low vibrational frequency they have been broadcasting for decades. Consequently, the physical body instantly recognizes this deeply worn groove. The brain floods the system with the exact same cocktail of neurochemicals, fires up the identical, well-worn neural highways, and in a flash of biological lightning, you have stubbornly reverted back to the person you historically were, completely abandoning the glorious being you were poised to become. The texture and quality of your conscious awareness dictate absolutely everything in your material world. Whenever you evaluate your current circumstances through the tainted lens of historical defeats, your central nervous system faithfully reconstructs the precise biological environment of those past traumas. You trigger the same fight or flight stress response, the same restricted, shallow breathing patterns, the identical knot of tension anchoring your shoulders, and that familiar, suffocating grip of self-doubt in your chest. Why does this happen? Because your physical vessel is a loyal servant, strictly following the architectural blueprints handed down by your daily observations. You are not just a passive passenger sitting in the audience of your own existence. You are the ultimate creator, actively forging reality into solid matter with every single glance, every fleeting assumption, and every lingering mood. This is precisely where your inherent power becomes undeniable. The legendary double-slit experiment illuminated a shocking truth. When an observer watches a particle, the ambiguous wave of infinite possibilities forcefully collapses into one solid, indisputable coordinate. Without an observer, there is only boundless potential. The moment the observer arrives, reality is forced to make a definitive choice. Your everyday reality operates on this exact, uncompromising mechanism. Everything in your orbit remains completely fluid, unwritten, and wide open until your internal consciousness casts its final vote. And the shocking truth is, you are casting that vote hundreds of thousands of times a day, mostly on autopilot. Every time you entertain a familiar, toxic thought, you are performing a quantum measurement. Every time you steep yourself in a known emotion, you are screaming a direct command into the quantum void, answering the ultimate question: which dimension of reality am I ordering from the universe today? The dimension where I am perpetually paralyzed, or the dimension where I am limitlessly expanding? Let us break this down into a highly actionable, practical strategy. Tomorrow morning, right before you physically open your eyes to greet the day, remember that there is a microscopic sliver of time where your worldly identity has not yet solidified. Your labels haven't latched on. Your societal roles haven't booted up. The crushing gravity of yesterday's burdens hasn't yet touched down on your psychology. This is the profound intersection between the fluid wave and the solid particle, the exact border between invisible potential and physical form. If you can train yourself to intercept that exact moment, if you can intentionally pause in that void and deliberately orchestrate your biology to take one massive, mindful breath, consciously melting the tension in your jaw, letting your shoulders drop away from your ears, and luxuriously stretching out your exhale, you are doing something truly miraculous. You are literally altering the geographical coordinates from which your internal observer operates. As a direct result, your biological machinery begins to synchronize with a radically upgraded emotional blueprint. You don't need to force exhausting, elaborate visualizations or master convoluted spiritual tactics. All you have to do is physically inhabit the anatomical posture of your absolute highest self. How does that elite version of you pull oxygen into their lungs? The breath is significantly slower, immensely deeper. How does that person carry their shoulders? They are expansive, relaxed, and entirely undefended. What is the rhythm of their heart? It beats with profound groundedness, utterly stripped of panic and desperation. When you boldly step into the physical sensation of that elevated frequency, rather than engaging in a mental tug-of-war with your limiting beliefs, you effectively yank your entire nervous system off its destructive, historical tracks. That singular, physical pivot is all it takes to establish an entirely new point of quantum collapse. And this leads us to the ultimate, undeniable truth that almost everyone is completely blind to. You are simultaneously the architect and the architecture. You are not merely a passive bystander watching your life unfold from the bleachers. You are concurrently the lens performing the observation and the very landscape being observed. You act as both the catalyst and the consequence within this closed loop of existence. By altering the energetic frequency at which you view your life, the external environment literally has no alternative but to fundamentally restructure itself to match the new broadcast you are emitting. If this profound shift in perspective is striking a chord deep within you, take a brief second to hit the like button and subscribe to our community. Doing so ensures we can keep unraveling these immense principles of conscious reality creation together. The ultimate puzzle is never about why your daily struggles seem stuck on a relentless, repeating loop. The actual mystery you must solve is, exactly what frequency are you tuning into when you perceive yourself? Broadcasting on the channel of lack and scarcity severely paralyzes your available options. Operating on a wavelength of defensive hostility permanently builds walls before a bridge can even be suggested. Conversely, radiating a frequency of deep gratitude instantly illuminates hidden doorways and golden opportunities that were utterly concealed just seconds prior. Shifting this internal dial is absolutely not about burying your head in the sand or pretending real-world friction doesn't exist. Instead, you are systematically upgrading the underlying operating system that your nervous system uses to decode and process physical reality. Once that biological translation shifts, everything follows suit. Your daily behaviors evolve, your automatic reactions transform into calculated responses, and your final destinations completely reroute. It is an undeniable scientific fact that your physical form is a walking archive of chemical history. However, that biological ledger is entirely rewritable. Yes, your brain possesses deeply entrenched neural superhighways, but neuroplasticity guarantees that new roads can be paved the instant you decide to alter your route. Mastering this level of existence does not require you to aggressively morph into an unrecognizable stranger. Rather, it is a profound remembering of your original, birthright identity, the ultimate decision-maker, the entity equipped with absolute sovereignty, the one holding the pen, before you pick up a ringing phone, before you hit send on a stressful email, and right before a tidal wave of anxiety crashes over you. There exists a microscopic window of time. Because it happens in a flash, the vast majority of society is completely blind to it. Yet, within that microscopic gap lies your absolute liberation. If you allow automatic, knee-jerk reflexes to fill that void, you instantly surrender your power, collapsing back into the exhausted persona of yesterday without a fight. But if you intentionally stretch that brief window by taking one deliberate grounding breath and quietly asking your inner self, how would the highest, most evolved version of me handle this exact scenario? You have successfully derailed the old timeline. The outward circumstance hasn't budged, but the consciousness gripping the steering wheel has fundamentally upgraded. Operating within quantum superposition does not mean making one monumental, permanent decision and being done with it. It grants you the ultimate authority to reinvent yourself continuously, second by second, hour by hour, interaction by interaction. Every conscious decision acts as a remote control, flipping the channel of your reality. Every mindful return to your breath serves as a powerful system reboot. Every single time you intentionally press your palm against your chest and realign your spine, you are delivering a direct, biochemical command to your body. Today's ruling frequency is unshakable peace and expansive openness, not chaotic panic and anxious contraction. Stop exhausting yourself by chasing fleeting, dramatic emotional highs. Instead, cultivate a rock-solid, steady baseline. Absolute stability is the impenetrable bedrock upon which all permanent, lifelong metamorphosis is constructed. Only when the lake is completely still can you see a perfect reflection. Only when your physical vessel is at ease can your intellect become razor sharp. And when your mind achieves that pristine lucidity, your daily actions effortlessly harmonize with your ultimate truth. Skeptics will argue that the modern world is far too demanding, claiming that intense external pressures strip away the luxury of conscious choice. This is an illusion. External stress never eradicates your agency. It merely compresses the breathing room between the initial trigger and your resulting reaction. And this is precisely why this practice is so vital. By deliberately exercising the muscle of your awareness, you forcibly stretch out that compressed timeline. You carve out a sanctuary of space where a moment ago there was only a brick wall. You discover profound sovereignty right inside the gap. That very space is your portal back to the realm of infinite possibilities. Inside that pause, you cease to be a victim of pure, blind momentum. You wake up to the reality that even in the most triggering, identical scenarios, an infinite menu of brilliant, elevated responses is readily available. The only variable is which specific avatar you invite into the room: the defensive reactor or the grounded responder, the terrified victim or the anchored creator, the beggar desperate for outside applause, or the sovereign who inherently recognizes their own infinite value. Whichever energetic signature you elect to wear, your aura broadcasts it like a radio tower, and the physical universe dutifully orchestrates corresponding events to surround you. Monumental lifestyle changes are all a game of born from one massive theatrical leap. They are meticulously assembled from thousands upon thousands of tiny, invisible micro-decisions. Therefore, a single day stacked with hyper-aligned, conscious choices already radically alters your gravitational pull toward a breathtaking new destination. The secret sauce is not found in mindlessly chanting empty, hollow affirmations that you do not truly believe. True transformation lives in the quiet, undeniable authority of your physical posture and the rhythm of your respiration. When your physical stance transforms, the data being transmitted back to your brain fundamentally changes. As those biological signals upgrade, your emotional wiring is forced to rewrite itself. As your emotions settle into harmony, your chaotic thoughts effortlessly untangle and clarify. You never have to violently force positive thinking. You merely cultivate the prime biological environment where crystal-clear cognition blooms entirely on its own. This is the exact blueprint. This is the only sustainable framework. Rather than stacking brute force on top of exhausted willpower, you are constructing the unshakable foundation for a brand new quantum collapse through your tangible physiology, through intentional rhythms, and through soft, unrelenting consistency. Once that base is solidified, optimal decisions pour out of you effortlessly, no longer feeling like brutal inner warfare, but rather like organic, inevitable evolutions. So, I challenge you to implement this tomorrow morning. The very millisecond your awareness boots up, do not let your fingers blindly seek out your glowing screen. Instead, firmly place one hand over your heart center and rest the other gently on your stomach. Draw in a deep, sweeping breath of air through your nose, and then allow that breath to escape smoothly through your mouth, making the exhalation intentionally longer and more drawn out than the inhalation. Execute this precise, calming breathing cycle 3 consecutive times. Following this, I want you to summon a very specific physical sensation. Do not try to conjure a visual picture or a mental movie in your mind. Rather, locate the tangible, bodily felt sense of the ultimate avatar you intend to incarnate today. Discard all verbal language. Do not use words to describe it. Instead, intimately feel the specific gravity of your physical form, the expansive width across your collarbones, the steady, unhurried cadence of your respiration, and the relaxed, tranquil focus in your eyes. Once that elevated sensation is locked in, physically rise from your bed embodying that exact entity. Plant your bare feet onto the floorboards, possessing the exact energetic signature of that evolved self. Initiate your very first physical steps of the morning entirely wrapped in that upgraded frequency. The initial moments immediately following your awakening possess an astronomical degree of leverage over your reality. When you calibrate your internal compass correctly at the very genesis of your morning, the remainder of your waking hours will effortlessly cascade with profound grace and synchronicity. Naturally, as the chaos of the day unfolds, you will inevitably drift off course that is simply part of the human experience. But when that drift occurs, your only task is to gently guide yourself back to that foundational posture and deliberate breath. You are essentially hitting the master reset button, plunging yourself right back into the infinite waters of quantum superposition. You grant yourself the permission to choose your state again and again and again. By the time the sun dips below the horizon, you will inevitably realize that you have morphed into a distinctly upgraded iteration of yourself. You will be the kind of person who naturally initiates entirely different dialogues, executes bolder decisions, and magnetizes an entirely new caliber of opportunities. Never sit around passively waiting for a sudden burst of divine inspiration before you decide to act. Make the conscious choice first, and watch as inspiration scrambles to catch up with your momentum. Furthermore, abandon the illusion of waiting for your external environment to magically improve before you elevate your state of being. Choose your state first, and the external world will be forcefully compelled to reorganize its molecular structure to match your internal broadcast. Quantum superposition is your inherent birthright. The power of conscious observation is your ultimate instrument of creation. Your physical vessel serves as your unbreakable anchor to the present, and every single sunrise initiates a sacred living laboratory where you get to witness the fabric of reality weaving itself together precisely according to the specific energetic dial you purposefully tuned into. March into this new day as an individual who has finally remembered their true, infinite nature. Do not walk out the door as a beggar desperately hunting for miracles in the outside world. Instead, move through space as the walking, breathing miracle that is already fiercely alive within every single inhalation, every footfall, and every continuous pulse of pure awareness. When you finally anchor your existence in this profound realization, your journey ceases to be a mindless, automated hamster wheel of historical repetition. It transforms into a masterpiece of conscious creation, an exquisite symphony where you proudly hold the baton as the master conductor, the fully awakened observer, the deliberate architect, and the soul operating with absolute, undivided presence. However, we must confront the harsh reality of why most fail to achieve this. Every dawn, as consciousness filters back into the brain, a pristine, untouched universe is freshly generated within your mind. Yet, rather than seizing this blank slate and stepping into boundless liberty, the overwhelming majority of humanity subconsciously slips right back into their deeply eroded, historical ruts. They immediately begin streaming the exact same stale thoughts, regenerating the exact same toxic emotional cocktails, and firing off the identical knee-jerk reactions that have calcified over the years into what they mistakenly label their personality. This phenomenon is quantum collapse executing itself at such blistering speeds that you remain entirely blind to the sabotage. You initially wake up floating in pure superposition, bathed in infinite potential, yet within fractions of a second, you fatally observe yourself through the lens of yesterday's outdated identity, the tired version of you that is hopelessly weighed down by historical baggage and paralyzed by imaginary future catastrophes. Instantly, the quantum wave collapses, and your reality folds neatly back into the miserable, familiar box it has always known. This destructive loop replays itself with the terrifying precision of a song your neurology has memorized by heart. You don't even have to expend the mental effort to actively dwell on your past traumas. Your biology and your central nervous system will gladly hit play and rerun the entire agonizing script on autopilot. From an evolutionary standpoint, over millions of years, this predictive software was a brilliant survival mechanism designed to keep our ancestors alive by memorizing and repeating behaviors that successfully avoided danger. But today, in our modern era of conscious, spiritual evolution, that ancient survival software has mutated into the very iron shackle that prevents you from ever tasting a novel, elevated experience. I urge you to brutally audit your mornings. Pay microscopic attention. What is the absolute first physical sensation that washes over you the second your eyelids part? Is it a wave of profound serenity, or is it a familiar, creeping undercurrent of tension? It only takes one microscopic, passing thought about a pending deadline or an unpaid bill, and instantly, your endocrine system floods your bloodstream with cortisol and stress hormones. Your heartbeat accelerates, your lung capacity shrinks, and just like that, the trap snaps shut. You have actively collapsed your reality back into the suffocating frequency of yesterday. The core problem is never your bank account, your relationships, or your current circumstances. The true enemy is this invisible, automated biological hijacking, You must understand that your physical body has a vastly superior memory bank than your conscious intellect. It meticulously hoards the energetic footprint of every trauma, joy, and routine of your entire lifespan. Without your fierce, intentional intervention, your body's default setting is to blindly photocopy whatever feels the most familiar. Think back to the physicists analyzing the double-slit experiment. They proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that matter remains a fluid wave of possibility until an observer enters the room. The absolute millisecond a conscious gaze is applied, the particle locks into a rigid, singular state. Human existence operates under the exact same microscopic legislation. The moment you begin to label and observe yourself as perpetually exhausted, chronically anxious, or eternally struggling, your external reality obediently collapses to mirror that exact diagnosis, and you are pulling this trigger every single day, completely asleep at the wheel. You aren't just doing this once. You are collapsing your reality hundreds, if not thousands of times between sunrise and sunset. Every time you entertain a habitual pessimistic thought, every time you wallow in a recycled emotion of self-pity, you are actively commanding the quantum field to collapse into a highly restricted, compromised version of yourself. And here is the most terrifying, yet liberating, realization of all. This entire chain reaction is largely executing itself before your conscious mind even has a chance to cast a vote. Your physical body is making the executive decisions for you, simply because it remembers the past too well. It acts out of blind loyalty to ancient behavioral loops. It clings to the familiar misery because it is absolutely terrified of the unpredictable unknown. Therefore, even if your conscious mind is desperately fantasizing about financial liberation, profound inner peace, or ecstatic joy, if your physical nervous system has never been trained to feel safe while experiencing those elevated emotions, it will ruthlessly drag you back down into the mud. Countless individuals try to force personal transformation through sheer, exhausting mental willpower. They consume libraries of self-help literature, meticulously design vision boards, and furiously chant positive affirmations into their bathroom mirrors. Yet, no one ever warned them about the ultimate biological trap. Long before a conscious thought even forms in the prefrontal cortex, the body has already passed its judgment. It has already preloaded the emotional state that your brain is then forced to logically justify. Once you grasp the gravity of this biological sequencing, you will finally comprehend why meaningful change feels so agonizingly difficult. You are not merely wrestling with a few bad mental habits. You are going to actual war against deeply entrenched biological memory. You are up against trillions of cells that have explicitly memorized how you have historically suffered, cowered, and reacted. And tragically, those cells are vastly more loyal to their familiar history than you are to your future dreams. This brings us to the ultimate paradigm shift. This is precisely why true, lasting awakening never actually happens simply because you decided to think a new thought. It actually occurs the very moment you stand as a silent witness to your ancient neurological loops firing up, yet deliberately choose not to engage. You become pure observation. Your ultimate authority resides in simply recognizing that initial spark, the precise microsecond your nervous system hits play on that tired historical movie. And in that recognition, you pause. You do not freeze using white-knuckled, exhausting willpower. You halt with the profound stillness of an entity who finally understands the rules of the game. Think of it like suddenly realizing the radio is looping the exact same grating track over and over again. You do not need to grab a hammer and violently smash the stereo equipment to pieces. All you have to do is reach out, turn down the volume knob, take a deliberate, decelerated breath, and feel the cool oxygen flood your lungs. Notice your frantic heartbeat settling into a rhythmic, peaceful lull. In a literal snap, you have shattered the gravitational pull of the pattern. Inside that tranquil void, you have hollowed out enough space for a brand new timeline to birth itself. I am genuinely curious. What is one specific, stubborn loop you have caught yourself replaying endlessly in your own life? And what is one microscopic pivot you are committed to executing to finally disrupt it? Drop your insights in the comments section below so we can navigate these shifts together. Society peddles the myth that massive, theatrical leaps are required for personal transformation. The reality is far quieter. Metamorphosis begins the second you identify your moment of quantum collapse. If you are entirely blind to your own regression into yesterday's character, you will sleepwalk through your entire existence, while ironically bragging about your free will. Listen closely. Your physical vessel is not your adversary. It is merely a loyal guardian fiercely defending the only environment it has ever known. Therefore, instead of declaring war on your own biology, you must gently educate it. You must teach your cells that profound safety is found in serenity, not in panic and vulnerability, not in rigid control. When you dedicate the raw, opening minutes of your dawn strictly to somatic awareness, feeling your physical form and modulating your breath long before you remember your earthly labels, you are broadcasting a revolutionary blueprint. You are actively instructing your ancient nervous system that tranquility does not equal danger. You are proving that sheer survival no longer demands a state of hypervigilant tension. Maintain this practice consistently for a few weeks, and your biological machinery will undergo a literal rewiring. Subsequently, you will witness your external reality bending and morphing as well, entirely because the core frequency of your energetic transmission has permanently upgraded. The most devastating trap of personal development is the illusion that sheer willpower will save you. Brute force cannot override a subconsciously automated system without the piercing light of hyper-awareness. You simply cannot pummel biological instinct into submission. You can only transmute it through razor-sharp, elevated attention. The exact moment you observe a trigger activating from the outside, you elevate from the puppet on the stage to the maestro directing the entire symphony. You no longer wake up trapped as a predictable character inside a pre-authored script. Every sunrise morphs into a breathtaking quantum laboratory. You hold the pen. Will you collapse reality into the exhausted avatar of yesterday? Or will you pull your brilliant, emerging self into the physical dimension? Will you violently react as you historically have? Or will you anchor yourself in silence, granting a pristine, elevated frequency the room to materialize? Transformation sparks in that initial flash of lucidity, where you finally reject the assumption that you are contractually obligated to be the exact same person you were 24 hours ago. You suddenly realize that the entire construct you proudly refer to as I is nothing more than a byproduct of relentless repetition, and the second that repetitive loop is severed, a massive vacuum opens, welcoming an entirely upgraded iteration of your soul. From that breakthrough onward, you abandon the exhausting pursuit of forcing change. You simply decline to select the familiar. Each intentional pause systematically drains the gravitational pull of your former identity. It is akin to a swinging pendulum gradually bleeding its kinetic energy until it hangs perfectly still, eagerly awaiting a new push in an entirely different direction. The universal law of quantum collapse cannot be deleted. It can only be mastered and redirected. And the cosmic authority to command that trajectory has belonged to you since birth. You can allow reality to collapse randomly while you sleepwalk, or you can elevate your mornings into a sacred initiation, a daily laboratory where you deliberately handpick who you will embody, what energetic signature you will radiate, and what specific timeline you will observe into solid matter. Realize this: your human body is far more than a clump of physical mass. It is a breathing, walking archive cataloging every chemical signature that has ever coursed through your veins. Every agonizing defeat, every suffocating fear, every burst of euphoria, and every crushing disappointment has burned a permanent stamp into your cellular architecture. Your biology does not experience amnesia. Your cells diligently record and continuously replicate your historical chemical environment, ensuring that you wake up feeling the exact same emotional cocktails you drowned in yesterday. When your conscious mind shouts, "I am ready to evolve," your physical body crosses its arms in defiance. It remains utterly unconvinced. It aggressively demands its daily, familiar fix of neurochemicals, the predictable hits of cortisol, adrenaline, and dopamine that it has grown biologically addicted to. To your primal biology, the familiar, no matter how toxic, is interpreted as safety. Even if a specific behavioral loop generates immense suffering, your body grips it like a life preserver because, in its primitive coding, the known equals survival. This is the exact scientific reason why, following a massive burst of weekend motivation, you inevitably crash back into your toxic routines by Tuesday. It is not a symptom of a weak character. It is simply because your cellular biology has not yet installed the new software update. Your central nervous system functions like a rigorously trained symphony orchestra. Each emotion is a specific musical note, and you have passively allowed the conductor to loop the exact same tragic symphony for decades. Authentic metamorphosis never takes root merely at the intellectual level. It initiates only when the physical body begins to physically vibrate to a completely different melody. But for your body to actually hear this new composition, you must possess the immense fortitude to sit patiently within the deafening silence that bridges the gap between the fading of the old soundtrack and the crescendo of the new. This uncomfortable silence is the literal phase of biological withdrawal. It is the agonizing window where your cellular structure violently rebels, screaming for its familiar emotional narcotics, mirroring a heavy caffeine addict waking up to find the coffee pot completely empty. You will inevitably feel hollowed out, aimless, inexplicably agitated, and completely terrified of the void. But hold the line. The undeniable truth is that you have simply entered the sacred zone of cellular reconfiguration. Your cells are painstakingly learning how to exist, breathe, and thrive without relying on the toxic, outdated compounds of your past. Once you truly comprehend that every single thought you entertain is a literal biological command, you inevitably begin treating yourself with a profound, unprecedented level of respect. The very moment you actively starve your system of the toxic neurochemicals of fear, self-doubt, and relentless self-criticism, you simultaneously carve out the necessary internal real estate for the biocompounds of profound peace and unwavering trust to flood your bloodstream. This is the rigorous physical process of biological retraining, and you must accept that it will never manifest overnight. Neuroscience clearly dictates that if you can sustain a novel energetic state for a sufficient duration, your central nervous system has no choice but to construct entirely new neural superhighways. Your neurons will literally sever old ties and rewire themselves, forging robust physical networks specifically designed to house your newly elevated emotions. However, there is a non-negotiable prerequisite to this evolution. You must bravely endure the intense friction of this metamorphosis without fleeing the scene the second your physical body initiates its inevitable rebellion. You must completely reframe your perspective. Discomfort is absolutely not a symptom of failure. Rather, it is the undeniable physical proof that your biological system is successfully breaking out of its suffocating comfort zone. Pay microscopic attention to what surfaces within you during this critical withdrawal phase. You will likely experience an accelerated, pounding heartbeat, restricted and shallow breathing, and a screaming mental narrative begging you to surrender. Recognize these symptoms for what they truly are: the desperate, dying echoes of your historical patterns aggressively trying to reel you back into the abyss. When you can stare these terrifying sensations directly in the face without flinching or instinctively reacting, your biological vessel learns a monumental lesson. It learns that absolute survival and safety are completely possible, even in the total absence of those addictive stress chemicals. You are essentially educating your biology to remain exquisitely calm in the face of the unknown, and that precise calibration is the absolute birthplace of true freedom. The tragic reality is that the vast majority of the population never crosses this sacred threshold because they drastically misinterpret the pain of growth as a sign of imminent danger, not realizing that this friction is the literal sensation of transformation. They frantically retreat to their familiar, toxic routines just to secure a hit of recognizable emotion. They proudly label this retreat as finding stability, when in reality, it is nothing more than tragic, unconscious repetition. To permanently shatter this relentless loop, you must forcefully introduce your body to a radically different experience, repeating it so consistently that your nervous system eventually adopts it as its new baseline of home. And the most elegant, accessible hacking tool you possess for this task is your own respiration. The very act of pulling air into your lungs deeply, methodically, and with hyper-conscious intent sends an immediate, undeniable signal to your ancient brainstem that there are no predators lurking in the shadows. Consequently, your physiological threat level plummets. Your hormonal cocktail shifts dramatically, swinging the door wide open for an entirely new, elevated state of consciousness to take up residence. You must remember that your physical body processes data infinitely faster than your intellectual mind. Therefore, it is a completely futile effort to try and force positive thoughts while your chest is tightly constricted, breathing like a cornered animal. You must reverse engineer the process. Initiate the physical breathing pattern of a deeply peaceful, unbothered master, and watch how effortlessly your anxious mind surrenders and follows that physical lead. I challenge you to treat every single day as a high-stakes training ground. View every spike of uncomfortable emotion not as a curse, but as a golden opportunity to hit the master reset button. There is absolutely no need to endlessly dissect your childhood traumas or overanalyze your historical mistakes. Your only assignment is to remain fiercely anchored in the present second, objectively observe your biological flare-ups, and meticulously course-correct your breathing. Commit to this practice long enough, and the stubborn chemical memory stored in your cells will begin to permanently dissolve and rewrite itself. Inevitably, a day will arrive when you suddenly realize that the very triggers and emotions that used to enslave you have been entirely stripped of their power. Why? Because you have physically starved them out. They simply no longer possess the toxic internal environment required to survive. Do not dismiss this as abstract, New Age mysticism. This is the hard, uncompromising science of biophysics. The trillions of cells composing your body communicate with one another continuously via sophisticated electrical and chemical telegraphs. They are relentlessly downloading data from the overarching energetic field you are broadcasting. What you casually refer to as an emotion is, in scientific terms, merely the biological translation of that electrical current. If you consistently maintain a low frequency of chronic fear, your cellular structure will obediently mold itself to perfectly align with the blueprint of fear. Conversely, if you steadfastly hold a frequency of serene peace, your cells will aggressively replicate the physical architecture of peace. This profound shift does not occur through wishful thinking or blind faith. It manifests through the literal, physical reconstruction of your molecular makeup. Your physical vessel possesses a profound, innate intelligence that is vastly superior to your intellect, and it is perpetually eavesdropping on the subconscious signals you transmit. Once you begin communicating with it using its native tongue, the undeniable language of deliberate breath, intentional movement, profound rest, and deep somatic gratitude, it instantly comprehends that a massive software update is underway, and it eagerly begins the arduous work of restructuring itself. You do not even need to intellectually believe in this process for it to work. You solely have to execute the practice. Generally, after approximately 21 days of relentless consistency, your deepest biological cycles will undergo a massive reorganization. A profound, unexplainable lightness will rise from within you. This buoyancy does not emerge because your bank account grew or your external problems vanished, but entirely because you have stopped reacting to the world through the violently skewed lens of your past. Welcome to the dawn of true energetic autonomy. This is the exalted state where you are no longer violently yanked around by primitive chemical cravings, but instead, you harvest those intense energies and transmute them into high-octane fuel for conscious creation. Once you establish this profound comprehension of your anatomy, you instantly cease the toxic habit of blaming your body for holding you hostage. Instead, you extend profound gratitude toward it for working so tirelessly to keep you protected all these years. From this paradigm shift onward, Personal transformation completely ceases to be a bloody battlefield pitting your willpower against your primal instincts. It evolves into a beautiful, harmonious reconciliation between two vital halves of a singular, flawless system. Your physical body finally learns that it can inherently trust your conscious leadership, and in return, you learn how to intuitively decipher its subtle whispers. Every inhalation and every pulsing heartbeat serves as a rhythmic reminder of your unbreakable unity, co-creating reality together as one powerful entity. Once this massive biological update is fully installed, evolving becomes your most natural state of being. Much like water resting on a flame inevitably reaching its boiling point, you no longer have to strain or force the issue, because everything is unfolding in perfect accordance with universal law. Your only remaining duty is to simply maintain consistency and ensure that your overarching awareness always remains vastly wider than your immediate, knee-jerk reactions. This is the ultimate definition of biological freedom, a dimension where your physical form completely ceases to be a limiting prison and fully activates as a highly tuned quantum instrument, impeccably serving the commands of your higher consciousness. The moment you truly internalize that every single cell in your physical body functions as a microscopic, observing quantum particle, you will naturally begin treating yourself with an immense, unprecedented level of respect. You will guide yourself without aggressive force, absolutely free from harsh self-judgment, relying purely on elevated, conscious direction. You do this because you finally understand that your biological architecture is listening closely and responding faithfully in every waking moment. Allow this entire journey to become the ultimate harmonization of rigid scientific law and profound meditative stillness, the perfect marriage between logic and sensation, between the analytical mind and the intuitive heart. Through this alignment, instead of desperately trying to numb or escape your current existence, you step onto the podium as the masterful conductor of a brilliant biological orchestra, perfectly tuning it to resonate at a pristine, never-before-heard frequency, and the majestic sound you collectively emit eventually solidifies into the rhythm of an entirely new, breathtaking physical reality. Consider this profound scientific parallel. When a physicist directly observes a single electron under a microscope, that unpredictable energy instantly surrenders and locks into one hyper-specific, measurable position in space. However, the exact moment the observation ceases, that very same electron dissolves back into a cloud of probability, existing quite literally everywhere simultaneously. That breathtaking quantum phenomenon extends far beyond the sterile confines of theoretical physics. It serves as the fundamental architecture of human existence itself. The specific lens through which you scrutinize the universe literally dictates the shape the universe will take. When you diagnose your life using a filter of severe lack, you actively collapse your boundless potential into a suffocating, three-dimensional reality of scarcity. Conversely, when you evaluate your existence broadcasting a frequency of infinite abundance, your physical world has no alternative but to aggressively expand to match that elevated vibration. Understand this deeply. The act of observation is never, under any circumstances, a passive or neutral event. It is a direct, authoritative command issued to the fabric of space and time. Every single thought you construct, every fleeting glance you cast, and every emotional state you deliberately entertain serves as a precise quantum measurement, a definitive ruling that forces reality to solidify into the exact state you are focused upon. This is precisely why two individuals can stand shoulder to shoulder within the exact same set of physical circumstances, yet inhabit two radically alien dimensions. One individual gazes into the void and sees a canvas of explosive opportunity, while the other looks at the identical landscape and sees nothing but impenetrable brick walls. The environment has not changed. The difference lies entirely in the distinct energetic frequencies driving their internal observers. You do not perceive reality as it objectively is. You perceive reality entirely as you are. The human optical system does not function like a passive video camera, blindly recording external events. Instead, your eyes capture scattered light, translate it into electrical impulses, and fire those impulses deep into the brain. Your brain then furiously decodes these signals through the highly biased, distorted filters of your historical memories, limiting beliefs, and deeply scarred psychological patterns. Therefore, every single time you open your eyes, you are not merely absorbing fresh data, you are actively projecting your old, recycled data onto the present canvas. Reality is not a passive mirror accurately reflecting your environment. It is a giant, multi-dimensional projector screen actively displaying the internal movie you are continuously broadcasting. The moment this profound mechanical truth clicks, you will never look at consciousness the same way again. Observation is the ultimate act of creation. You must obliterate the old societal lie that you must see it to believe it. The absolute quantum truth is that you must first believe it with every fiber of your being in order to ever see it physically manifest. When you cultivate the unwavering internal belief that you are divinely safe and fiercely protected, your brain dutifully floods your nervous system with harmonizing neurochemicals. Your physical armor melts, your endocrine system stabilizes, and the external world magically morphs to present you with deeply supportive, matching situations. On the flip side, if you walk through the world convinced that the universe is actively conspiring, your breathing becomes jagged and shallow, your aura radiates screaming alarm bells, and you perfectly magnetize disastrous scenarios that validate your terrifying assumptions. You become the ultimate, walking, self-fulfilling prophecy. Do not confuse this with superficial, toxic positivity. We are discussing the uncompromising biophysical mechanics of human consciousness. While the masses assume that looking at something is a passive intake of information, in the quantum realm, observation is the aggressive, deliberate selection of which parallel possibility gets to become physical matter. Every time you formulate an opinion about your own identity, you are effectively running a personal double-slit experiment. You hold the power to view yourself as a dense, isolated particle severely restricted by the limitations of space, time, and physical decay. Or, you can choose to perceive yourself as an infinite quantum wave, boundlessly expansive, eternally interconnected, and completely free from borders. The specific archetype you choose to embody dictates exactly how the raw energy of the universe will arrange itself in your immediate vicinity. Pay close attention to how certain individuals can simply walk into a crowded room, and the atmospheric pressure instantly lightens. This happens because they are transmitting a radically open, expansive field of observation. They inherently see the limitless potential residing in every person they meet, and that elevated gaze literally forces the people around them to rise to the occasion. Contrast this with individuals who drag heavy, suffocating anchors into every room they enter. They view the world through a permanently skeptical, deeply judgmental lens, and their oppressive electromagnetic field aggressively suppresses any bright, beautiful possibilities from blooming in their presence. You cannot successfully fake or conceal your true frequency. This is because observation is not an act restricted to your eyeballs. It is perpetually executed by your entire electromagnetic aura. Scientific instruments prove that the human heart generates an electrical wave thousands of times more powerful than the human brain. Therefore, raw emotion is the most potent, reality-bending form of quantum observation available to you. When you focus on a target with pure, unadulterated love, you literally breathe life force into it. When you observe that same target through the paralyzing lens of fear, you actively siphon its vitality. The universe is completely deaf to your spoken vocabulary. It is, however, highly fluent in the subtle emotional frequencies encoded behind your eyes and within your thoughts. You can stand in front of a mirror and scream, "I am an ocean of peace," until your throat bleeds. But if your internal nervous system is curled into a terrified, contracted ball, the universe will only reflect back more terrifying contraction. Consequently, if you wish to radically alter your reality, do not start by exhaustively changing your physical actions. You must start by revolutionizing your core perception, because every meaningful action is birthed from a specific way of seeing. When you relentlessly observe your identity through the rearview mirror of your past, you permanently imprison your future within the suffocating boundaries of what you have already survived. But the moment you observe yourself through the golden lens of pure potential, you obliterate the walls and throw open the doors to dimensions you have never previously accessed. This is the monumental divide between a victim trapped in memory and a master living in possibility. One is perpetually reacting, the other is deliberately creating. Every single time you view your circumstances through the filter of terror, you are forcefully commanding the universe to rewrite your life using a tragic, outdated script. And because your cellular biology is deeply addicted to that familiar tragedy, it acts out the miserable scene flawlessly. But if you possess the supreme awareness to catch yourself in that exact moment of collapse, if you can pause and quietly whisper to your own soul, "I have the authority to perceive this differently. I demand to see the hidden opportunity here, an absolute miracle occurs." In a fraction of a millisecond, your brainwave states drastically alter. Your internal chemistry frantically reorganizes itself, and your entire three-dimensional reality begins to physically reshuffle. That is the exact threshold where you evolve from merely being illuminated by the light into the sovereign creator who actually holds the flashlight. Once this realization locks into your psyche, that observation is the engine of all creation. You suddenly become fiercely protective of and responsible for every single thought you allow into your head. You realize that every thought is a calculated measurement. Every emotional state is a merciless command of quantum collapse. You are relentlessly, endlessly selecting which version of reality gets the privilege to exist. You can never turn off the observing machine, but you possess absolute dominion over how it observes. You can choose to view this earthly plane as a bloody, exhausting battlefield, or you can elevate it into a magnificent, experimental laboratory for your soul's expansion. You can perceive every stranger as a dangerous threat, or as a profound mirror reflecting the very pieces of yourself that are crying out for healing and understanding. And if this deep dive into the mechanics of frequency and quantum observation is sparking a fire deep within your consciousness, I want to assure you of one thing: what we are unraveling here today is merely the very beginning. If you are truly ready to master this entire architectural framework, I meticulously break down the exact mechanics in my book, Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. Inside its pages, I guide you step by step through the complete system of conscious broadcasting. You will learn precisely how to unplug your nervous system from the deafening static of survival mode and fully embody the elite master frequencies that elevate you from a desperate seeker into the living embodiment of pure existence. You can find the direct link pinned in the comments below. The absolute second your internal vantage point pivots, your energetic output radically alters, and your physical outcomes are forcefully compelled to mutate. Masters of conscious observation do not frantically sprint away from negative circumstances. They profoundly recognize that negativity is nothing more than a severely constricted, suffocated state of awareness. As your conscious awareness broadens and elevates, those dense, negative states naturally evaporate into the ether without a fight. True observation is the absolute mastery of internal silence. When you deliberately withhold your judgment, when you refuse to quickly slap a label on a situation or rush to a frantic conclusion, you successfully keep the quantum wave suspended in its fluid, uncollapsed state. Within that sacred superposition, infinite, breathtaking possibilities continue to coexist simultaneously. You are not aggressively wrestling the physical world into submission. You are simply hollowing out the energetic space required for the universe to express itself through a significantly upgraded frequency. This is precisely why ancient meditative traditions constantly instruct you to simply observe without interfering. Because the moment you witness something with pure, unattached presence, you grant the object of your focus the ultimate permission to organically evolve. That pristine act of witnessing alone drastically alters the final physical outcome. Your true dominance is never found in micromanaging or rigid control. It resides entirely in your unwavering, awakened presence. When you gaze out at the world completely stripped of terror, greed, or aggressive resistance, You successfully reclaim your throne as the pure observer, and stepping into the shoes of the pure observer is the absolute genesis of all deliberate creation. Physical reality is fundamentally incapable of resisting a gaze that is completely devoid of manipulation. It has absolutely no choice but to recalibrate its molecular structure to perfectly harmonize with your emitted frequency of profound peace. Burn this undeniable truth into your mind. The cosmos does not possess ears to hear your verbal prayers. It strictly interprets the silent dialect of your energetic frequency. If you fall to your knees and pray from a hollow space of desperation and lack, you are aggressively broadcasting a direct command for more lack. Conversely, if you radiate profound gratitude for an outcome, as if it is already materialized in your hands, you are blasting the frequency of total abundance. Your daily observation is the silent, ongoing prayer of your consciousness. Therefore, you are actively praying thousands upon thousands of times every single day, simply through the specific lens you use to view yourself, your neighbors, and your earthly journey. Cease endlessly repeating the exhausted phrase, "I need to fix myself." Instead, revolutionize your perception. Deliberately observe yourself as a magnificent organism in the active process of blooming, rather than a broken machine desperately requiring repair. Begin viewing the external world as a highly intelligent, living web that obediently pulses in sync with your heartbeat. When you lock into this paradigm, you will quickly discover that miracles are not random, lightning strike anomalies. They are the standard, biological byproduct of a revolutionized perception. And in that precise moment, the tectonic plates of your life shift. The transformation isn't just a trick of the mind. The literal fabric of three-dimensional reality reweaves itself. Why? Because your awakened consciousness just fired off a brand new command of quantum collapse, and the universe instantly, dutifully obeys. However, be warned, the moment you initiate this massive pivot, your physical body will not surrender peacefully. It will violently rebel. Your biological vessel has been thriving on a highly specific, toxic, emotional cocktail for decades, and it genuinely believes that this chemical baseline is the absolute definition of survival. Therefore, the second you cut off its daily supply of familiar stress hormones, it registers this shift as a lethal threat. The sudden spikes of restlessness, the crippling waves of anxiety, and the intense physical discomfort that inevitably crash over you when you begin this work are absolutely not symptoms of failure. They are the undeniable, physical proof that you are successfully purging the old chemical matrix from your bloodstream. Much like a heavy caffeine addict suffering through the brutal first days of going cold turkey, you will likely experience dense mental fog. Your skull might ache, your moods will swing erratically, and you will feel entirely disoriented because your biological machinery is actively plunging into severe withdrawal from the toxic compounds it has historically relied upon. Your cells are literally screaming into the void, demanding to know, what is happening? Where is our morning hit of panic? Where is the familiar rush of cortisol, worry, and muscular tension? If you are ignorant of this biological mutiny, you will tragically misdiagnose the pain of withdrawal as proof that you are walking down the wrong path, and you will frantically sprint back to your miserable, familiar self just to secure a fleeting sense of safety. You must rewrite your understanding of growth. Comfort does not equate to correct, and intense unease does not equal danger. Authentic biological metamorphosis is always accompanied by internal trembling, not as a cosmic punishment, but as the literal sensation of physical restructuring. Every single cell, every microscopic neural pathway, and every internal chemical reaction is undergoing a grueling boot camp, learning how to function and thrive without using raw terror as its primary fuel source. You might abruptly find yourself physically exhausted, inexplicably drawn to extended periods of silence, and completely losing your appetite for drama or activities that once excited you. You will find yourself wholly unwilling to engage in dense, heavy conversations. Celebrate this. It is a magnificent omen. When your nervous system is finally starved of chaotic adrenaline, It requires a deep hibernation period to learn how to metabolize peaceful energy, a fuel that burns much lighter, but is infinitely more potent and sustainable. Tragically, this is exactly the phase where the masses tap out. They simply cannot endure the deafening emptiness. They falsely equate stillness with losing their competitive edge or their inner drive, completely oblivious to the fact that this void is merely the necessary and quiet reboot sequence before the entire operating system upgrades. When an obsolete energy pattern finally dies, a literal vacuum opens up between the old frequency and the new one. Trapped inside that empty space, the ego panics because it has absolutely nothing familiar to grip onto. But if you can fiercely hold the line, remain relentlessly patient, and refuse to relapse into your historical patterns, you will wake up to the realization that you are being entirely reconstructed from the inside out. In the realm of neuroscience, this grueling phase is known as synaptic rewiring. The very neurons that were hardwired to fire along your old destructive circuits are actively breaking apart, forcefully clearing the internal real estate required for brilliant new networks to emerge. It is this precise, temporary internal chaos that makes you feel so profoundly alien in your own skin. But here is the ultimate promise. If you can weather this storm for just a few short weeks, you will witness your physical body fundamentally adapt to its new, exalted baseline. Your endocrine glands will flawlessly recalibrate their outputs. Your racing heartbeat will settle into a powerful rhythmic drum. Your lung capacity will expand. Your frantic knee-jerk reactions will dramatically decelerate, and you will begin to experience a profound, unshakable physical stability that you never even fathomed was possible. This is the ultimate prize, the elite stability of a master frequency, a state where immense, creative energy flows effortlessly through your system, without ever requiring the toxic stimulation of chaos. To successfully shepherd your physical vessel through this turbulent crucible, you must arm yourself with two non-negotiable tools: hyper-vigilant awareness and profound self-compassion. A heightened state of awareness allows you to recognize that your body's violent protests are not attacks from an enemy. Rather, they are the primitive language of your biology frantically signaling that an immense quantum leap is imminent. Simultaneously, deep kindness grants you the grace to nurture this delicate transition softly, completely devoid of aggressive force or harsh self-criticism. The next time you feel your nervous system begin to violently shake, pull in a massive grounding breath. Firmly press your palm against your heart center and quietly dictate to your cells, "I am entirely secure. I am simply mastering a revolutionary new way to exist." The exact moment you transmit this biological command, your parasympathetic nervous system fiercely activates. The flood of toxic stress hormones instantly evaporates, allowing the grueling work of cellular reconstruction to proceed with fluid grace. Do not dismiss this internal dialogue as some foolish, meaningless ritual. Cutting-edge biophysics has conclusively proven that human cells actively listen and continuously respond to the exact frequencies of your voice and your core intentions. When you speak to your internal anatomy with genuine compassion, those specific acoustic waves ripple through the high water content of your physical tissues, generating literal, microscopic vibrations of deep healing. At this juncture, the journey of transformation ceases to be a bloody war against your own flesh. It blossoms into a beautiful, synchronized collaboration. Your conscious mind and your physical body link arms, marching forward together through the agonizing withdrawal phase, collaboratively laying down the foundation for an entirely upgraded emotional operating system. Neurologically speaking, this monumental recalibration typically requires a span of roughly 30 days. The initial 10 days plunge you into the brutal fires of chemical withdrawal. The subsequent 10 days are dedicated to the meticulous reconstruction of new neural pathways. Finally, the concluding 10 days solidify the permanent integration of your new frequency. If you can maintain unbroken, fierce consciousness throughout this 30-day window, your biological machinery will officially adopt profound peace as its absolute, non-negotiable baseline. Your nervous system will permanently resign from its addiction to chaotic, intense emotional spikes just to feel alive. Instead, it will crave exquisite equilibrium as its ultimate proof of reality. Consequently, every dense, rigid structure within you begins to luxuriously soften. This is the sacred threshold where your auric energy becomes completely transparent and radically unobstructed. Once your energetic field achieves this crystalline clarity, the exhausting charade of trying to manifest becomes obsolete. You no longer need to furiously visualize or aggressively force the laws of attraction into submission, simply because your unshakable by steady state has organically become the ultimate magnetic vortex of pure creation. A sustained field of absolute tranquility acts like a tractor beam, silently but flawlessly pulling in perfectly matched, high-vibrational experiences. You are officially retired from having to endlessly prove your worth, chant desperate affirmations, or beg the cosmos for scraps. Your literal breathing biology has physically mutated into a walking, living prayer. You are constantly broadcasting a cosmic signal declaring that you have permanently returned to your sovereign center. You have dropped your weapons and stopped fighting the current of life, choosing instead to glide in perfect unison with its majestic flow. The moment your physiology stabilizes in this exalted state, you will be astounded to discover that the very entities and scenarios that once paralyzed you with terror have been completely stripped of their venom. Deeply embedded triggers that historically sent you spiraling will simply wash over you like a harmless, passing breeze. In a flash of brilliance, you will realize that control is no longer a desperate target you are frantically chasing, primarily because you have organically become the literal embodiment of unwavering dominion. When your awakened consciousness and your primal biology finally lock into perfect alignment, you instantly stop exerting exhausting effort trying to become a new person, because that upgraded version has already arrived. This is the magnificent climax where your bioenergetic field achieves absolute, measurable coherence. Trillions of cells vibrate in a flawless, unified symphony. Your cardiovascular system and your neurological networks synchronize perfectly. Your emotions process with crystal-like clarity, and profound miracles begin manifesting right before your eyes. These miracles do not drop from the sky because an external deity took pity on you. They materialize solely because your internal operating system is finally biologically equipped to receive them. At this echelon, personal evolution is no longer an abstract philosophical theory debated in books. It has solidified into concrete, measurable biological architecture. When you pause to observe your external landscape, you might be shocked to realize that the outside world hasn't significantly altered at all. The only variable that shifted is the precise mechanism of your internal response. The physical props of reality remain identically arranged on the stage. However, the specific character walking onto that stage to interact with them has been entirely reborn. And that, unequivocally, is the purest, most undiluted definition of absolute freedom. You never needed to board a rocket and escape this planet to find peace. Your only mandate was to aggressively sever the cord of your historical, knee-jerk reactions. Your physiological body officially signs a peace treaty with your mind, transforming into an unstoppable ally. It entirely ceases its mission of dragging you backward into the graveyard of your past, and instead proudly escorts you into the uncharted brilliance of your future. Every microscopic cell inside your framework effectively becomes a silent, radiant witness to your ultimate awakening. Every inhalation you take serves as an undeniable confirmation that you have successfully shattered the suffocating matrix of societal and biological programming. Once your metamorphosis hits this altitude, you completely abandon the desperate hunt for change. You literally become the living embodiment of change itself. Every calculated response and every elevated sensation you experience is indisputable proof of the silent, magnificent biological revolution actively conquering your internal world. Armed with this profound comprehension, you will never cower in the face of an internal tremor ever again. You now possess the absolute knowing that every ounce of biological resistance is nothing more than a masterclass in cosmic expansion. It is merely another vital stepping stone propelling you toward existing permanently within the exact frequency your highest soul selected long ago. Let us return to the genesis of your day. The early morning dawn acts as the ultimate, sacred portal bridging the invisible void of raw potential with the solid world of physical form. It is the razor-thin border between the infinite and the rigidly defined. In that elusive microsecond immediately following your awakening, long before your memories boot up and your earthly identity forcefully reassembles itself, you are floating freely within the absolute purest state of quantum superposition. In this magical vacuum, every single conceivable timeline and outcome overlaps simultaneously, eagerly awaiting your executive command. Yet, tragically, the overwhelming majority of the human race utterly squanders this divine window in a matter of seconds. They blindly grope for their glowing screens, instantly downloading their birth name, their crushing obligations, and their towering mountains of unresolved trauma. In the blink of an eye, they brutally collapse the quantum wave, plummeting directly back into the exhausted, outdated shell of yesterday's persona. They mindlessly reboot the exact same toxic frequency, trigger the identical chemical cocktails, and fire off the same predictable sequence of defeated reactions. If your true desire is to fundamentally mutate your external reality, you must intercept the process at the exact coordinate where reality itself is born, the silent void that exists fractions of a second before you remember your own name, while your eyelids are still heavy and glued shut, as raw consciousness is just beginning to trickle back into your brainstem. You must aggressively anchor yourself inside that quiet nothingness. Refuse to let your mind think. Forbid your brain from remembering. Absolutely deny the urge to define your current circumstances. Your sole responsibility is to intimately track the sensation of oxygen sweeping into your lungs. Observe the raw, primal energy of life quietly rising within your chest, exactly as if you were given front-row seats to witness the spectacular birth of a brand-new galaxy. This profound, fleeting junction is the precise moment you are granted the sovereign authority to dictate which physical avatar you are about to collapse into form. You hold the ultimate choice. You can consciously choose to slide back into the rotting corpse of your former self, the one inextricably chained to chronic worry and suffocating control. Or you can boldly step into the magnificent new archetype, a master effortlessly navigated by unshakable peace and absolute clarity. This profound selection is not executed through intellectual vocabulary. It is commanded entirely through raw, visceral, physical sensation. You must allow your physical anatomy to serve as the ultimate instrument of quantum observation, simply because your cellular network recalls emotional states exponentially faster than your analytical mind ever could. When you attempt to summon the highest, most evolved iteration of yourself, do not waste energy trying to paint a highly detailed mental masterpiece or visualize complicated scenarios. Instead, strictly lock on to the tangible energy of that elite avatar. How deeply does that version pull oxygen into its lungs? How dramatically do its shoulders drop away from its ears? How do its eyes confidently meet the gaze of the external world? Does its heartbeat radiate a steady, unshakable calm? Once you pinpoint that specific energetic signature, force your current physiology into perfect alignment with that rhythm. Breathe exactly as that master would breathe. Sit up right on the edge of your mattress precisely as that sovereign entity would. Let your bare feet make contact with the floorboards carrying that exact, elevated posture. Every single microscopic physical action, when executed with hyper-focused awareness, fires a revolutionary electrical signal straight down your central nervous system. And that precise biological signal dictates the overarching electromagnetic frequency you will broadcast for the remainder of your day. The art of conscious collapse. The moment your physical vessel receives the undeniable biological decree that this is the new operational baseline, it immediately gets to work. Your hormonal cocktails, your resting heart rate, and your autonomic biological responses begin a slow, methodical recalibration, actively hardwiring this elevated state to become your permanent default setting. By rigorously repeating this somatic ritual every single morning, you are aggressively training your biology to embody the new you, long before your waking mind has the opportunity to violently drag you back into the gravitational pull of your past. This is the absolute mastery of conscious quantum collapse. You are not exhausting yourself trying to magically bend the external world into submission. You are fundamentally upgrading the observer of that world, and as a strict cosmic law, the external world must automatically contort itself to perfectly reflect that internal upgrade. As you navigate your waking hours, the universe will generously provide you with endless laboratories to test this practice. When a coworker makes a comment that spikes your irritation, recognize that trigger for what it truly is, a critical moment of quantum collapse. You hold the power to blindly plunge into your historical, toxic reaction, or you can fiercely hit the pause button, draw a massive breath, and silently interrogate yourself. How would my most hyper-aligned, evolved self navigate this exact friction? Every challenge you encounter, every emotional trigger that trips your wires, and every moment you feel dangerously close to surrendering is a direct cosmic audit. It is a real-time test to verify whether you are truly holding the steering wheel, or if you are passively allowing your primal biology to drive you off a cliff. Achieving neural coherence, the profound divide separating the conscious creator from the unconscious victim, is not an absence of real-world problems. The difference is that the conscious master actively detects the exact moment of quantum collapse, watches their own programming try to hijack the system, and deliberately chooses again. The unconscious mind merely reacts blindly. The more relentlessly you hit the override button and choose the upgraded response, the faster your nervous system physically molds itself to this new frequency. Eventually, collapsing into your highest timeline becomes a frictionless, automatic reflex. Science formally identifies this exalted state as neural coherence, a biological symphony where every major organ resonates in perfect unison. Life force energy surges effortlessly, and three-dimensional reality bows instantly to your elevated state of consciousness. The blade of awareness. To ascend to this level of mastery, you must ruthlessly train your awareness during the mundane micro-moments of your existence. Audit yourself when you are mindlessly unlocking your smartphone. Watch yourself as you stand in front of the bathroom mirror. Monitor your grip on the steering wheel while driving. Interrogate your tone while speaking. Every single mundane action is actively steering you, either dragging you backward into the graveyard of your past or launching you forward into your brilliant future. Constantly ask yourself, which version of me is executing this action right now? Is it the terrified, anxious survivor, or the crystal-clear creator, the frantic rusher, or the anchored master? That singular, piercing question is the razor-sharp blade that instantly severs the thick, suffocating vines of unconscious, knee-jerk reactivity. The millisecond you ask that question, you are jolted fully awake, and inside that awakened state, you completely reclaim your power of choice. Gradually, it will dawn on you that engineering a conscious collapse does not require convoluted, hour-long spiritual rituals. It demands nothing but raw, unfiltered presence. You do not need to hide away in a candle-lit meditation sanctuary or wait for the perfect time. You only need to fiercely occupy the current second. A deliberately extended exhale, the gentle weight of your palm resting upon your sternum, the subtle softening of a genuine smile. These microscopic physical gestures are more than enough to fiercely remind your biological vessel that a new frequency has been chosen. They act as potent activation codes within your brain cortex, aggressively prompting your entire nervous system to recalibrate on the fly. The keeper of rhythm. As you relentlessly practice this, the lag time between the trigger and the shift vanishes, until staying in a high vibration becomes your natural, biological reflex. Once you successfully conquer the art of conscious collapse, every facet of your earthly experience mutates. Instead of acting like a fragile sponge, helplessly absorbing the chaotic emotional garbage of everyone around you, you step into your power as the sovereign keeper of rhythm. Instead of being violently shaped by your external circumstances, you become the undeniable force that molds them. Because when you finally master the exact moment of collapse, you successfully master the absolute origin point of every single outcome in your life. The universe does not require you to aggressively micromanage or forcefully control it. It merely demands that you consciously declare who is going to experience it. And when the avatar you select is radiantly clear and deeply luminous, the scenarios magnetized to you will flawlessly mirror that exact energetic signature, becoming significantly lighter, breathtakingly precise, and profoundly instructive. This is not fairy tale magic. It is the uncompromising, scientific byproduct of quantum synchronization, the 7-day quantum challenge. I challenge you to execute this exact protocol for the next 7 consecutive days. Treat it as a sacred experiment. Intercept the dawn. Tomorrow morning, the absolute millisecond awareness trickles back into your brain. Fiercely forbid your internal monologue from speaking first. Anchor in the breath. Bypass the mind entirely and immediately feel the raw sensation of oxygen filling your lungs. The deliberate smile. Next, allow a soft, intentional smile to form on your lips. Do not smile because of an external reason, but simply to celebrate the realization that you are actively standing inside the sacred intersection of pure choice. Select the frequency. Actively command the specific sensations of absolute freedom, unshakable peace, and pristine clarity to flood your biology. Greet the light. When you finally permit your eyelids to open, let the very first rays of morning light hit your retinas, not as just another ordinary day, but as the entire universe officially welcoming your newly upgraded avatar, the sovereign step. Swing your legs over the mattress and step out of bed with luxurious, unhurried precision. Pull in one final, massive inhalation, and gently whisper directly into the stillness of your own mind. Today, I deliberately choose awakened awareness. Through that one deceptively simple, microscopic act, you broadcast an undeniable shockwave across your entire energetic field, firmly commanding that your quantum collapse will exclusively materialize on an elevated frequency today. As the chaos of the daily grind attempts to assert itself, ruthlessly repeat this internal protocol the very second you feel your energetic baseline begin to plummet. Every single repetition forcibly redirects your biological and energetic currents, and with unyielding certainty, the external, three-dimensional landscape will slowly morph to perfectly mirror that ironclad internal consistency, the mirror of reality. This is the raw, unadulterated superpower of conscious quantum collapse. It is a dominion birthed not from exhaustive, white-knuckled control, but from the elegant grace of an awakened choice. The millisecond you truly digest the fact that you owe absolutely no loyalty to the exhausted character you played yesterday, you taste ultimate liberation. Every single dawn serves as a literal biological resurrection. Every passing second is an active intersection of choice. You are the sovereign observer, eternally presiding over the judge's bench, dictating exactly which parallel universe is granted permission to physically manifest. When you navigate existence from this altitude, you completely abandon the desperate, sweaty struggle of trying to become. You merely execute a choice. You select your timeline utilizing raw, somatic feeling, hyper-focused presence, and calculated respiration. And through these subtle, internal elections, you actively forge your entire material reality silently, flawlessly, and with zero resistance, mimicking the exact effortless behavior of a subatomic particle. But here is the profound, hidden dimension that the vast majority of society will tragically never comprehend. The absolute moment you successfully permanently upgrade your own internal frequency, the external globe surrounding you is forced to mutate in tandem. This does not happen because you aggressively bullied the universe into submission, but entirely because all of physical reality functions as an uncompromising, giant mirror, faithfully reflecting the precise vibrational blueprint you are radiating. Raw energy is physically incapable of lying. It always answers with brutal, flawless honesty. If you stubbornly anchor yourself in a state of deep tranquility, the deafening noise of your environment will organically begin to mute itself. If you project a blinding aura of clarity, the chronically confused and chaotic actors will rapidly drift out of your orbit, while hyper-aligned allies will miraculously materialize. Do not confuse this with mystical folklore. This is the unbreakable physical law of resonance. It dictates that matching frequencies magnetically seek each other out and exponentially amplify one another. The electromagnetic purge. When you execute a conscious collapse into an elite tier of yourself, you are not merely restructuring your internal biology. You are actively detonating energetic shockwaves throughout the unified collective field. Cutting-edge biophysics has thoroughly documented that the human vessel generates a highly potent, measurable electromagnetic aura. The heart acts as the supreme command center of this field, broadcasting emotional data several meters outward, instantaneously informing the biology of every living creature within its blast radius. When you cross the threshold into a crowded room, long before your vocal cords ever vibrate, your energetic signature has already delivered a roaring monologue. Every person in that space absorbs it, even if their conscious intellect remains completely oblivious. When you carry genuine serenity, the nervous systems of the people around you involuntarily sigh in relief. When you are burdened by toxic tension, they subconsciously suffocate under your heavy shadow. When you operate with piercing, absolute presence, you literally drag those around you out of their mental time travel and into the sacred now. This is the exact mechanism of changing the world without lifting a single finger. Your personal metamorphosis generates tidal waves that crash into anyone vibrating remotely near your bandwidth. Naturally, some will be immensely elevated by your light, while others will become violently uncomfortable because blinding illumination naturally exposes hidden shadows. Do not ever mourn the sudden distance of old acquaintances. This is not a tragic loss. It is the vital, organic mechanism of frequency filtering. As you ascend, the universe acts as a ruthless bouncer, automatically severing the dead weight and reorganizing your social network to retain only those who match your newfound resonance. It might initially sting like abandonment, but it is pure, unadulterated liberation. You aren't losing anyone. You are simply acquiring the energetic clarity to recognize who is genuinely qualified to exist within your upgraded orbit. You never have to persuade, beg, or prove your worth to anyone. The universe never steals from you. It only aggressively rebalances. Morphic resonance and collective evolution. Furthermore, when you relentlessly sustain this elite vibration, your radius of influence completely shatters the limitations of physical geography. Because quantum energy is profoundly non-local and entirely immune to the constraints of physical space, a single, potent transmission of love from your heart can literally recalibrate a devastated soul on the opposite side of the planet. Scientists refer to this staggering phenomenon as morphic resonance, an invisible, telepathic connective tissue binding similar biological systems. Once a single pioneer hacks through the dense, psychological jungle and reaches a novel frequency of peace, they permanently carve out an energetic highway, making it infinitely easier for the rest of humanity to find that exact same destination. Every time you choose radical forgiveness over bitter retaliation, you are literally rewriting the source code of the global collective consciousness, making the act of forgiveness biologically easier for every other human on Earth. This is precisely why the most ascended, peaceful masters to ever walk this earth rarely need to preach. Their sheer, towering presence does all the heavy lifting. When they step into a chaotic environment, the ambient energy is forced to kneel and reorganize. Hostile tension organically melts. Frantic heartbeats synchronize into a steady drum. Constricted lungs expand. They do not need to philosophize about the concept of love, because they have physically mutated into the undeniable, walking manifestation of it. You possess the exact same architectural capability to become that radiant anchor. When your internal energy achieves unshakable consistency, you evolve into a sturdy lighthouse amidst a stormy, chaotic world. Humanity will inherently feel a profound sense of safety around you, not because of any physical action you perform, but entirely because of the towering frequency you are. Your silent presence becomes a brilliant, unyielding lamp, gently reminding every passing soul of their own dormant light. No complex theories, no exhaustive debates, just pure, unadulterated presence. That, above all else, is the single most magnificent legacy a human being can ever leave behind. The moment you truly grasp the magnitude of this interconnected reality, you completely discard the illusion that your spiritual evolution is an isolated, solo endeavor. You begin to understand that every single respiration cycle you complete actively broadcasts potent data into the intricate biological web of our entire planet. Whenever you deliberately draw in oxygen and release it with pure intention, you are literally assisting the global ecosystem of life in its own profound recalibration. The instant you consciously elect the frequency of love, that specific electromagnetic wave violently surges through the fabric of space. It completely ignores geographical borders, transcends linguistic barriers, and intimately caresses thousands of distant hearts that are tuned to that exact same frequency. Every seemingly insignificant micro-decision generates a massive cosmic ripple. Even your deliberate, profound silence transmits an undeniable message. Through your quiet stillness, you aggressively declare to the universe that authentic, towering power never requires deafening volume to be felt. And miraculously, the three-dimensional matrix begins to shift in obedience. Hidden avenues of opportunity suddenly materialize, and breathtaking new alliances organically weave themselves into your reality. Heavy iron doors that were previously bolted, shut, effortlessly swing wide open, entirely because your internal energetic signature has finally synchronized with the frequency of boundless expansion. This is precisely how the physical universe acknowledges your upgraded operating system, not by handing out arbitrary gold stars or karmic rewards, but through the flawless, mathematical refinement of the circumstances, individuals, and synchronicities that cross your path. If you observe the mechanics of reality closely, you will discover that every single event unfolds for one singular mission: to fiercely maintain vibrational resonance. Therefore, when a chaotic external event violently yanks you out of your peaceful baseline, do not label it as a catastrophic failure. It is merely a cosmic alarm clock violently ringing, reminding you to navigate back to your sovereign center. The overarching collective consciousness does not demand flawless perfection from you. It desperately craves your raw authenticity. Whenever you stumble, simply stand back up and realign. Whenever you suffer from temporary amnesia and forget your power, just gently remind yourself, every single time you successfully opt for illumination over darkness, you incrementally hoist the entire energetic baseline of the human race. It is scientifically and spiritually impossible for you to be isolated on this expedition, because the cosmos is absolutely not a fragmented collection of separate objects. It is one breathing, unified ocean of intelligent energy. When a single water droplet defies gravity and ascends, the entire surface tension of the ocean is elevated alongside it. Every conscious pivot you execute acts as a towering tidal wave traversing that infinite sea. And when you navigate those choices utilizing the compass of unconditional love, you actively render this planet a fraction less terrifying, significantly less shadowy, and infinitely less fractured. Therefore, you must completely cease underestimating the invisible, silent internal battles you are winning, because they are undeniably orchestrating colossal, tectonic shifts across the galactic grid. When you can fiercely anchor yourself in serenity while surrounded by absolute madness, you literally force order into the eye of the hurricane. By permanently residing in an elite energetic echelon, you are doing far more than repairing your own trauma. You are serving as a living tuning fork, actively reminding the rest of the world how to sing in the key of pure light. This is the ultimate, undistorted definition of spiritual awakening. The goal is never to cowardly escape the friction of earthly existence, but rather to set it ablaze with illumination from the inside out. Your very existence transforms into a radiant, walking invitation, silently beckoning other lost souls to finally navigate their way back home. I need to intentionally pause our momentum right here. If the concepts we are unearthing today are striking a dormant chord deep within your cellular structure, if this transmission is actively resuscitating a buried fragment of your soul that has been desperately starving for liberation, then I want you to take a physical action right now. Scroll down and etch this exact phrase into the comment section. I choose awareness. Do not treat this as just another mindless social media engagement. Treat it as a fierce, binding, energetic contract. It is a literal flare gun fired into the quantum field, aggressively declaring that you are officially sabotaging your historical loops. You are publicly stepping up to the podium to claim your crown as the sovereign observer. Type out those 3 specific words. Let that physical keystroke serve as your very first deliberate, conscious quantum collapse of the day. Let it be the definitive moment you violently break free from the gravitational pull of unconscious momentum and plant both feet firmly in the sacred sanctuary of the present. Now, we must dismantle the greatest illusion surrounding the concept of personal liberty. Authentic freedom is absolutely never achieved by stubbornly carving out one single, flawless, rigid version of your personality. Absolute sovereignty is unlocked the millisecond you comprehend that you contain the architecture to embody every single version of yourself, gliding effortlessly between these diverse avatars, as smoothly as oxygen enters your lungs. You were fundamentally not engineered to be chained to a single, claustrophobic character archetype, whether society labels that role as the impenetrable stoic, the relentless achiever, or the passive monk. You were birthed into this dimension to luxuriate in the breathtaking fluidity of human expression. You possess the divine clearance to unsheathe your sword and become the fierce warrior when the battlefield demands it, to morph into the tender healer when brokenness surrounds you, to ignite as the brilliant creator when inspiration strikes, and to dissolve into the unshakable, silent observer the moment the external noise reaches a deafening pitch. By anchoring yourself inside the quantum realm of superposition, you gain VIP access to every single one of these elite archetypes without ever compromising the integrity of your core spirit. This is possible because your true essence is not a rigid geometric shape trapped in a box. It is highly conductive, shape-shifting energy designed for infinite metamorphosis. The second this truth infiltrates your mind, you permanently retire from the exhausting, toxic hamster wheel of trying to fix yourself. You abandon the suffocating goal of locking into one permanent persona for the rest of eternity. You realize that ultimate, undeniable perfection is actually found in supreme adaptability. The master who exhibits total energetic flexibility never actually loses their balance. They simply permit cosmic energy to surge through their nervous system without getting snagged on the jagged edges of their historical trauma. Consider the profound intelligence of water. It can violently rage as a river, fall gently as rain, hover as an ethereal mist, or freeze into solid ice, yet it never fundamentally sacrifices its core chemical identity. You possess that exact same miraculous capacity to seamlessly adopt any required expression without ever fracturing your central soul. This is the absolute apex of psychological and spiritual liberation. You completely cease being held hostage by your own stubborn ego and its limiting definitions of who you think you are. Instead, you operate as a blazing, continuous current of electricity, undergoing a literal rebirth every passing second. When you establish your residency in this elevated state, the terrifying unpredictability of the external world completely loses its grip on your throat. Why? Because you no longer possess a fragile, brittle, fixed ego that desperately requires defending. You can flawlessly adapt to any hostile environment without ever betraying your own heart. You can instantly pivot and respond to chaos without ever diluting your fierce integrity. Every single friction point and human collision transforms into a majestic portal, inviting you to unearth an entirely new, undiscovered stratum of your own brilliance. When a harsh betrayal strikes you, you no longer just wallow in the bleeding wound. You instantly recognize it as a profound opportunity to radically expand your capacity for radical forgiveness. When a terrifying obstacle blocks your path, you don't merely register the spike of primal terror. You witness the glorious awakening of your dormant courage stepping up to the front line. When ecstatic joy floods your system, you don't just passively consume the fleeting dopamine hit. You experience profound, molecular gratitude fiercely vibrating through the nucleus of every cell in your body. This is the exalted hallmark of a master firmly planted in quantum superposition. This is an entity who has officially stopped playing the exhausted, dualistic game of choosing between light and dark, or good and bad. Instead, they ruthlessly integrate both polarities into a singular engine of power. They possess the profound, esoteric knowledge that absolute freedom is only forged in the fires of acknowledging the entire spectrum of existence. You are fundamentally incapable of truly selecting the light without first getting your hands dirty marching through the darkest valleys of your own shadow. And you can never weaponize absolute faith until you have intimately wrestled with the paralyzing demons of your own doubt. Understand that every single fragment of your psyche, especially the shattered pieces you falsely label as weak or broken, serves as a magnificent, hidden gateway to absolute totality. You must cease waging a brutal, internal war against your own polarities. Instead, roll out the welcome mat and allow your deepest shadow and your brightest light to dine at the exact same table. The millisecond you unconditionally embrace the entire, chaotic spectrum of your being, massive, blocked currents of life force energy are suddenly unleashed. And it is precisely this unbridled, torrential flow that detonates your dormant quantum power. When you ascend to this elite echelon, your physical vessel mirrors the mind-bending scientific phenomenon physicists refer to as a superfluid, a miraculous state of matter where energy glides forward with absolutely zero friction. Every action you take unfolds with breathtaking grace, lightning speed, and razor-sharp precision. You permanently retire from the exhausting, sweaty hustle of striving and seamlessly graduate into the majestic art of allowing. What the rigid scientific community catalogs as superflow, the elevated spiritual realm crowns as true awakening. You drift through the three-dimensional matrix exactly like an untethered breeze, completely liberated from rigid shapes, entirely unchained from tragic historical narratives, existing purely as the physical manifestation of fluid awareness dancing in motion, anchored firmly in this supreme state of consciousness. The suffocating, man-made illusions of right versus wrong instantly evaporate into the ether. The only metric that remains relevant is your flawless alignment with the unique frequency of the present microsecond. When the current dictates a vocal response, your words flow effortlessly like a river. When the moment demands absolute stillness, you embody the void without hesitation. If the energy signals a departure, you pivot and leave. If it requires you to hold the line, you stand as immovable as a mountain. You are completely unplugged from the frantic, exhausting matrix of knee-jerk emotional reactions, seamlessly navigated instead by the purest, most elevated energetic current available in any given heartbeat. The most breathtaking miracle of operating at this specific bandwidth is the sheer, undeniable synchronicity that hijacks your daily existence. You completely discard the desperate need for micromanaged, neurotic blueprints of your future. Every essential resource, every golden opportunity, and every vital ally materializes with flawless, orchestrated timing. You officially take your throne as the unseen, masterful maestro of your own reality, not by brutally forcing the external world to bend to your ego's will, but by cultivating an immaculate, vibrational resonance between your beating heart and the cosmos. From this elevated vantage point, the trivial, mundane dramas that used to induce crippling panic are reduced to microscopic, harmless ripples on a vast, glassy lake. You are entirely immune to their disturbance. You have merged into the ultimate dual role, the silent, untouchable witness and the divine architect. You no longer fall to your knees begging the heavens for a fleeting moment of peace. You are the blinding epicenter radiating that peace into the room. You abandon the frantic, exhausting scavenger hunt for your life's purpose, because your very existence has become the living, breathing embodiment of divine intention. Consequently, every single mundane activity is baptized in sacredness, not because the task itself is glamorous or grand, but because it is executed with fierce, undivided presence. As you sip a simple glass of water, you intimately trace the life-giving current, revitalizing your cellular grid. As you stroll down the pavement, you can literally feel the planetary crust rising up to support the soles of your feet. When you lock eyes with a stranger, you instantly recognize the reflection of your own soul staring back at you. Every fragmented piece of reality transforms into a vibrant tapestry of cosmic interconnectedness. This is the ultimate, undeniable confirmation that you have successfully mutated into a sovereign quantum entity. You inherently understand that the boundary separating your physical skin from the external universe is a complete hallucination. Every object, every person, every distant star is merely a different geometric arrangement of the exact same primordial energy. The poisonous obsession with possessing things completely dissolves as you finally realize that true ownership is a man-made myth. Nothing truly belongs to anyone. The paralyzing terror of loss is permanently eradicated, grounded in the scientific fact that energy cannot be destroyed. Nothing can ever truly exit the unified field from which it was birthed. Soaked in this profound realization, you slide into an organic, universal current where events unfold with absolutely zero internal friction or resistance. And ironically, surrendering to this massive tide does not mean you lose your identity or drown. You actually become more crystalline, sharp, and defined than ever before. You strip away the distorted lenses of societal concepts and rigid dogmas, finally witnessing the stark, breathtaking reality of what is. A master occupying this frequency permanently drops the exhausted philosophical riddle, "Who am I?" They recognize that this paradox was never meant to be solved intellectually. It is a mandate that simply demands to be lived physically. They completely forfeit the pathetic circus of trying to impress external critics, knowing their towering, silent presence commands more respect than any rehearsed dialogue ever could. They stop hunting for external validation because they have alchemized into the living definition of inherent worth. They glide through the chaos of modern life like a flawless, unwritten melody, not a forced, rigid composition, but the organic, sweeping soundtrack of existence itself. And as that beautiful vibration ripples outward, everyone in its path experiences a sudden, intoxicating taste of true freedom, simply because they are standing in the presence of someone who has finally signed a permanent peace treaty with their own soul. And if this exalted blueprint of reality, this specific, intoxicating bandwidth of deliberate creation is magnetically pulling at your spirit right now, then I am officially inviting you to subscribe. Do not merely click a button for this YouTube channel. Actively pledge your allegiance to this elite frequency. Join this unstoppable, global phalanx of awakened observers who refuse to play by the old, tired rules, who are ruthlessly collapsing reality into breathtaking new dimensions, and who are physically walking through the world as the exact change they demand to see. Lock in your subscription to remain fiercely anchored in this dialogue, to protect your standing in this high vibrational field, and to bind yourself to a thriving community of sovereign creators actively reclaiming their cosmic authority. Upon summiting this peak, you surrender the desperate, ego-driven need to convince anyone of your spiritual awakening. Your profound, unshakable stillness does all the heavy lifting. Weary humans inherently feel a deep, biological safety in your presence because your electromagnetic aura has transformed into an impenetrable sanctuary. You stop trying to aggressively manipulate and influence others, yet your impact becomes astronomical. You stop trying to perform acts of love because your very cellular structure has morphed into pure love. You cease hunting for the light at the end of the tunnel because you realize you are the inferno illuminating the cavern. This is the absolute zenith of your quantum superpositional journey. It is the sacred junction where you don't just intellectually grasp the concept of infinite timelines, but you actually ride them with fluid, effortless grace, entirely devoid of biological friction or mental strain. You are officially no longer the desperate pilgrim hunting for the golden path. You have forcefully mutated into the path itself, and with every single footfall you take, you tear open a brand new galaxy of infinite awareness. Therefore, as we draw the curtain on this transmission, I must leave you with one piercing interrogation. Who exactly will you elect to embody tomorrow morning at the precise millisecond your consciousness reboots? In that pitch-black void before your eyelids part, before your worldly labels furiously scramble to attach themselves to your psyche, what is your move? Will you blindly grope for your glowing phone and instantly surrender, collapsing right back into the exhausted corpse of yesterday? Or will you hold the line, draw a magnificent, deliberate breath, and finally step into the exalted avatar that has been patiently waiting in the quantum wings? I challenge you to queue up this specific video tomorrow at dawn, right before you open your eyes, utilizing these exact frequencies to violently hijack your first conscious collapse of the day. Furthermore, if you bear witness to a friend or loved one hopelessly drowning in their own repetitive, toxic historical loops, send this transmission directly to them. By actively broadcasting these elite quantum mechanics into the field of another human being, you exponentially reinforce your own neurological mastery, sparking a massive energetic tidal wave that dramatically accelerates the metamorphosis of both your souls. Take a breath and smile. The brittle, outdated architecture of your old self is already violently beginning to collapse. And this is not occurring simply because my voice is dictating it to you. It is happening because, by merely remaining anchored in this transmission, you have actively dared to observe yourself through a radically different lens. Just by listening, by prying open your consciousness to the undeniable truth that you are vastly more than a single, petrified state of being, that initial quantum collapse has already been successfully executed. The monumental question that remains is, do you possess the fortitude to sustain this frequency? Will you ruthlessly practice the art of conscious collapse tomorrow at dawn? When a harsh, external trigger strikes your nervous system, will you deliberately wield the weapon of awareness? Will you forcefully inject oxygen into that sacred pause rather than blindly reacting? Are you willing to strictly educate your primal biology that profound peace equates to ultimate safety, that living with a wide-open heart is not a synonym for fatal vulnerability, that absolute calm does not signify surrender, but rather ultimate mastery? Understand that lifelong metamorphosis is never baptized in one singular, theatrical climax. It is painstakingly forged across tens of thousands of invisible micro-moments. Every single passing second presents a brutal choice. Every trigger is a fresh quantum collapse. Each fraction of time is a cosmic invitation to either ascend into your sovereign avatar or regress back into the suffocating comfort of the known. But here is the magnificent grace hidden within this matrix. The universe does not demand flawless perfection from you. Your only requirement is to consciously remember your power more frequently than you suffer from amnesia. And when you inevitably slip and forget, you simply draw a breath and choose again. That relentless repetition is the master's practice. That is the path. That is the legendary quantum leap the masses are desperately hunting for. It is not waiting at the finish line of some distant, exhausting achievement. It resides entirely right here, nestled safely in the microscopic gap between external stimulus and your internal response. It lives in the silent pause before the reaction. It breathes inside the deliberate exhalation that alters the trajectory of your entire destiny. The one-word quantum declaration. Before you close this portal and return to your physical reality, I require one final action from you. Navigate to the comment section below and forge a single word. Just one highly concentrated word that perfectly encapsulates the raw energy, the fiercely targeted intention, and the profound transformation you are actively commanding from this second forward. Do not choose a word that eulogizes the trauma you are leaving behind. Select a word that violently declares the magnificent timeline you are stepping into. Let that specific word serve as your irrefutable energetic signature stamped onto the quantum field, a public declaration of the elite frequency you have officially agreed to embody. Join the frequency of coherence, and if you have not yet formalized your place in this community, hit the subscribe button immediately. Do this not merely to keep a digital connection, but to fiercely guard your neurological coherence, to lock in your alignment, and to permanently sustain your elevated altitude. As more of us successfully anchor this profound understanding into our biology, the external world has no choice but to forcefully reflect this brilliant truth back to us. We are no longer isolated individuals merely tinkering with our personal lives. We act as a unified, collective grid, actively hoisting the baseline frequency of global consciousness itself. By simply granting yourself the permission to step into your highest self, you telepathically grant that exact same permission to countless millions around the globe. This is the precise architecture of how we revolutionize the planet. We do not do it by bleeding out on the battlefield, fighting what is broken. We do it by becoming the undeniable embodiment of what is right. We do not resist the rotting structures of the old. We render them entirely obsolete by unapologetically becoming the new. We completely stop waiting for external conditions to magically improve, and instead radically shift the observer who is decoding those conditions. You are currently suspended directly upon the threshold of the ultimate doorway. The crumbling ruins of your obsolete identity lie motionless behind you. The blinding, sovereign iteration of your higher self stands patiently ahead of you. And bridging these two dimensions is nothing but this fleeting moment, this definitive choice, this specific inhalation. Step through the frame, consciously collapse into the elite avatar that has been waiting for you since birth, and then watch in sheer awe as three-dimensional reality frantically reorganizes its atomic structure to harmonize with the new frequency you are transmitting. The very millisecond you initiated this transmission, the foundational pillars of your old self began to spontaneously combust. Now, you must gracefully permit the ashes to fall, permanently uncurl your desperate fingers from the ghost of who you historically were, and stride fiercely into the blinding light of who you are becoming. Do not postpone this for someday. Do not wait until you falsely believe you are fully ready. Execute it right now, inside this exact second, anchored by this exact breath. Actively select awareness, ruthlessly demand presence, crown your highest self, and witness how absolutely everything morphs, not because the external globe magically shifted, but solely because you fundamentally mutated. And that internal pivot is the only mechanism that ever mattered. Thank you for anchoring your energy here. Thank you for deliberately selecting this exalted frequency. Thank you for finally reclaiming your rightful throne as the conscious observer, the awakened maestro, and the infinite quantum entity you have always inherently been. Go forth and aggressively architect your reality. Construct it one deliberate choice at a time, one mindful breath at a time, one flawless conscious collapse at a time. The cosmos is leaning in, eagerly watching, entirely prepared to physically mirror whichever sovereign version you finally decide to unleash.